Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this live stream session as part of the week of Voctech, which UFI Voctech Trust are kindly putting together. I'm very excited to be doing this session today, and we've got some fantastic guests, which I'm really looking forward to sharing some of their experiences of 2020 and beyond. If you are on Twitter, the hashtag is Week of Voctech. As we're going to hear from Maren from Amplify FE, it's all about being open and interactive to get the most out of these types of collaborations. So if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, make sure that you do take the opportunity to comment or post questions. Those, if the technological wizardry is working, will come through to us and we can post those up onto the screen and have our guests interact with those questions as well. Just leaves me to say welcome to you, whether you're listening during this live stream or listening back on demand or watching back on demand as well. So let's get straight to it. First of all, what I'd love to do is for each of the guests today, if you can just introduce yourself, who you are and what you do. And perhaps we'll start with Chantal from Honest Burgers. Chantal, if you can kick off, that'd be great. Chantal, I think you're muted.
Oh, I'm already having so many technical issues, so feeling really confident. So Chantal from Honest Burgers, I'm the people director, and I also look after tech and innovation through a people experience lens. So yeah.
Fantastic, welcome. And you know, the mute thing, that is something we've all experienced in 2020, I'm sure. Who'd like to go next? Shane, would you like to go next?
Sure, no problem. Hello everyone. First, can I just say it's a pleasure and privilege to be asked to do this, and particularly being recommended by one of the best in the country. Scott Hayden down at BCOT recommended me to come on and chat with you guys, so thank you, Scott, for that. Yeah, so my name is Shane Guilford. I'm a chef and lecturer primarily at Cheshire College South and West in Crewe, teaching levels 1, 2 and 3 hospitality programmes. As I say, mostly in the kitchen, professional cookery, but a lot of classroom-based stuff as well. I'm also, I guess, our digital innovator for our area. I mean, I'm not in the likes of Eason Babu Khan and Scott Hayden and Stephen Hope. I'm a teacher that uses tech effectively rather than digitally innovator as its own role. But I do that for our area, our small team, inspiring and training up colleagues and upskilling in what is, I believe, quite a daunting area of TLA. But I do that for the wider faculty and from campus to campus. A little bit about me, I'm MIE expert, so Microsoft-based MIE trainer, MIE educator status, Nearpod certified educator, Wakelet ambassador recently, which I was pretty pleased with. I had no idea actually that Wakelet was so big. It's massive worldwide. Flipgrid certified educator and ambassador, to name a few. So I'm part of a small team here at Cheshire College South and West, where we run our award-winning Academy Cheshire restaurant, the current AA College Restaurant of the Year. 2 years running that's been. So we're two-time winner of that. We've got AA Rosettes, highly commended, which is the equivalent to 2 AA Rosettes in industry, through the People First accredited colleges scheme with Andy Doyle and the guys at People First. I'd say myself and the team all have a high work ethic and a can-do attitude, which we believe transcends to our learners. So that's just a little bit about me.
Fantastic, thank you. And I should, for everyone who's tuning in after we started, I should mention, so this live stream episode of the Voctech podcast is all about the future of further education and vocational technology. So really excited because we've got both sides represented during this session, and we've got until 2 p.m. So I'm hoping to squeeze as much insight and knowledge sharing as we can. And Egla, I hope I haven't pronounced your name incorrectly, but please do correct me if it's wrong. But I'd love to hear from you, and then from Maren, and then we'll get stuck into our discussion.
Yeah, so my name is Egla Vanolskaite. I'm the director of Skillbright Labs and EdTech product development consultancy. I work with corporate L&D departments as well as startups in this area to develop digital learning products.
Fantastic. And finally, Maren.
Hi, everybody. I'm delighted to be here and be part of the week of Voctech. I was really inspired by the showcase yesterday, and I'm thrilled to think about the future. I'm the CEO of the Association for Learning Technology, their leading professional body for learning technology professionals, and we were established in 1993. So while this year has brought some unprecedented challenges, we certainly feel we've, not new to this particular area. And today, my contribution is going to focus on a really exciting and full of potential new development called Amplify FE, which is an overarching network for professionals in the sector.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to come to that because so many kind of initiatives at the moment are about sort of building that partnership between industry and further education and other educational institutions. So definitely going to come back to that in a moment. But you kind of highlighted that it's been a challenging year. So to continue with that theme, I put here, 2020 has completely changed our experience of learning and of work. So some context. So for remote working, I think in April, 46% of people suddenly were working from home in one way or another. And that was largely due to the pandemic and reported by the ONS. And then we've got two guests here from hospitality. So trade body UK Hospitality predicted 500,000 hospitality jobs would be lost by the end of this year. So that's quite stark, but we've also seen amazing creative ways of adapting to this situation. And I had the pleasure of speaking to you all before this session and getting to know what 2020 has been like for you. And I'd love to share this with our audience now. So Chantal, if I may, we spoke about your experience. Obviously, today is the start of a new lockdown in England. But when we spoke, you were dealing with different tiers of rules and regulations across England for, I think it's your 700 employees. And that's obviously a massive challenge, both in terms of keeping connected with them, but also helping them deal with all of these new compliance issues. So I just wondered if you could share with our listeners and audience today a little bit about what that experience was like and what the role of technology was in sort of helping to get around that.
Well, it's funny. We spoke, I think maybe 6 days ago, and today is the first day of lockdown. So I don't even need to speak in past tense because I'm actually living it today. So Groundhog Day is here again. So I think, there's a couple major things. So the United Kingdom isn't under one unit. We have restaurants in multiple parts of the country, including Cardiff. So in one hand, I have people ready to come out of a short fire circuit lockdown with new restrictions. So not only are they just coming out, they're coming out on new restrictions of pre-booking only. And then I have vast majority of my sites going into full-on lockdown delivery only. So actually in the last 24 hours, the use of technology and how we communicated with our people was crucial. And this morning, an hour ago, Rishi just extended furlough till March. So I'm certain my team are currently in the midst of automating bot messages to go out to all of our people. So, and that's been my morning. So I'm really excited to see what this afternoon brings. So I have to say, in terms of industry, I think when you see turn off your business, turn it on in 20 different ways, and that changes every week. The role of technology for us is been able to get the information to the people that need it the most as quick as possible. So speed has been a huge factor. And we use an automated messaging system called the bot platform that we build in-house that lets us push comms out and relevant information. So you might be saying, hey, furlough is changing again, here we go, which ticks the box for communication. But if I'm the individual, I'm still going, well, how much money am I getting? What does that mean for my bank account? How am I going to feed my kids or continue to get to work? So it also allows us to integrate with some really great programs, which my tech team can name far better than I can, about how we then get real-time information to those individuals about their specific pay. So for me, it can't just be about communication. There has to be a meaningful intervention that comes through that technology that gives information to that human that allows them to do something with it. So we balance the two via our platforms.
That's really interesting, because and Marion, we'll come to you later, but I know that there's this discussion around, perhaps technology can sometimes be it can deliver in a broadcast mode as opposed to becoming more porous and doing the back and forth that you talked about, Chantal. So it's not just about here's the rules, deal with them. It's also, well-being and supporting in different ways through the technology that you mentioned.
I think that's crucial, because I think 10 years ago, it was okay to take the box to say, let's get the information in the hands of the front line. Like, that was a challenge 10 years ago. I think nowadays the expectation of, especially my workforce, who all have smartphones, grew up with YouTube and Google, their expectations are a whole lot higher. They don't really care that they know the rules. They want to know that they can practically apply those rules in 10 to 20 different situations. And that's where kind of gamification, e-learning, and real integrated technology systems becomes crucial.
Fantastic, thank you, and all making us very hungry as well for an honest burger. So someone else, Chantal, obviously on the industry side, and then Shane, you're within the further education college side, if you will. So put here, you work within an award-winning college that you mentioned for hospitality, previously visited by award-winning guest chefs and a sort of a very hands-on kitchen which was open to the public. How have you adapted to be able to continue learning during 2020?
Okay, well, from a teacher's point of view, the pandemic has pretty drastically changed my, I guess, method of delivery, as it has for quite a few colleagues, to be fair. The thing with that is, you could argue, why has it taken a pandemic to get that change of delivery, for delivery to become a lot more collaborative rather than almost didactic teaching, face-to-face teaching? I'm fortunate that I've always been, I guess, quite tech savvy in my TLA, and together with an enthusiastic and energetic way of delivering. But the last few years, especially since meeting my new assistant, well, he's just been promoted to assistant principal. He was coming to us as director of faculty then, a guy called Mark Parsons. He really inspired me when my line manager at the time said, look, Mark's going to come here, he's going to take position. If I was you, I would pop and have a quick visit to him, because you'll come back a different person. So I did. I went to his old college, had it, set up a meeting and spent half a day with him, and never been the same since. So whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But he inspired me in such a short space of time, and pretty much thereafter, where I've embraced existing and forever developing new technology. And we don't just use it with token gesture either. We use it with great impact on a daily basis. So it's normal for our learners, if there is such a word nowadays. But it's normal for our learners. We're ensuring that phones are being used as part of sessions. It's the preferred learning style for today's modern learner, isn't it? So I'm using things like Flipgrid, Nearpod. We're utilising the full range of Microsoft Office 365 and its suite of applications. I know the two big hitters are Microsoft and Google, aren't they? Both do similar things. We've chosen the Microsoft way at our college. But things like Mentimeter, green screen technology, all these different bits and pieces, the seed was sown with Mark, and I've just ran with them. And because I've run with them with such enthusiasm, it forced me to upskill colleagues and so on. Now, some of the obstacles, well, this technology has made them less of an obstacle in the last few months. Okay, it's made them less of an obstacle than what it has done in a lot of other industries and professions. Now, my wife owns a beauty salon just down the road from here, and that, unlike us, has been made to close and so on. So the heartbreak there. Whereas with us, we can utilise this technology to ensure that teaching and learning and assessment still continues. So communication, I think, has been improved greatly by utilising Teams. We can get hold of a group of learners at any given time. Gone are the days where you could communicate with learners just on a a day-to-day basis between the hours of 9 and 4. We can communicate with a group or individual learners at any reasonable time now. And I think that's been crucial because with the adaptations and mitigation circumstances, we can adapt pieces of work and disseminate it through teams and so on. So other than the practical side, our learners weren't getting that far behind, to be fair. Yeah, so an example of what I used Neopod for during lockdown, obviously you've got your curriculum stuff that you have to use these tools and strategies for, but college trips were obviously, along with loads of other things, ceased. Well, that didn't stop me. I took my guys on a trip to Hawaii using virtual reality, Neopod as the sharing platform. I even had footage of the plane at Manchester Airport taking off with them on it. We went round Hawaii, saw all the sights, learned about all the food. We even stopped at a certain point in the presentation of this trip and had a packed lunch. We all wore hats and sunglasses, and it just brought a bit of fun into what was essentially for quite a few learners and colleagues quite a dark time, to be fair. So yeah,
I know you mentioned the heartbreak of having to close the restaurant as well, because obviously it's got quite a standing. So you know,
and it's a valuable income stream. The income stream of it, you know, we were a department was sustaining itself, and to have the rug pulled from under you. I mean, we had an 18-month waiting list. We do these gourmet evenings once a month. The last Thursday of every month, where we collaborate with celebrity and guest chefs, Michelin star chefs, the likes of Adam Smith from Coward Park down in Ascot, Paul Askew at the Art School, Mark Hicks, OBE. I mean, the list just went on. And these evenings were booked 18 months in advance with a 10-table waiting list. And to have that suddenly stop and the learners not getting the buzz of a busy restaurant or kitchen service, yeah, it's a lot to take, that is.
Well, I'll come back to that as well, because yesterday at the Voctech showcase, I was in a working group which was talking about simulation technology as well. So and using that in sort of high pressure situations. So I'd love to kind of come back to you and Chantal at the end and just talk about any other sort of technologies that you might be considering going forward. But now what I'd love to do is reflect on, you know, how to identify and embed some of the best practices. So obviously there's been a huge change. Some of this is good, some of this is bad. And Egle and Maren, if I might come to you, there have been multiple sector reports and initiatives which have come out recently. So I've got just launched its 3-year digital plan for FE and skills. The College Commission have just released the College of the Future report findings, and Maren, your Amplify FE report was also released. And I've been reading this in prep for this live stream. And one thing I noticed is that these various reports pointed towards the need to join up efforts across further education and industry in cohesive and open partnerships and networks. So Maren, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how a future of FE might better engage communities of practice, and what the defining features of a community of practice around FE and Voctech are that we should all be trying to uphold if we are to create this sort of future of FE and Voctech that we'd love to realise.
Yeah, definitely. So as I was saying, the project that we're involved in has a really straightforward aim, which is to join up a lot of existing networks, for example, around tools like Flipgrid that Shane mentioned, or for specific subject areas like hospitality or functional skills. But the challenge is really that the scale of staff and I think from all different sectors that require continuous upskilling is really growing. And I think it's grown very quickly and very steeply. So I think the need that we identified is to join in some of the existing communities and not reinvent them, but to just link them up with each other. So that, let's say you are a teacher who maybe doesn't have as much colleagues in their subject area in their college, or you work in industry and you might be looking for learning design ideas for a specific employment pathway, then the Amplify FE site and network is really there to help kind of signpost you to all the different networks and maybe try and network with other professionals to help upskilling and provide CPD. And we're looking obviously also to work that towards discovering resources that you can share openly with colleagues, that you can adapt, so that not every professional has to always reinvent the same challenges again. But I think this year we've had a lot of big question marks, sort of what does the future hold, and what does provision look like? Will it be fully online? Will it be blended? And I know that the UFI Trust has been instrumental in helping disseminate this essential knowledge across the sector. But I think we've also got to remember that we do actually have a lot of expertise. It's just finding the person with the expertise. That's the challenge. Who knows what works and what doesn't for your context, for your learners in your particular college or training provider or workplace. And that's really what the Amplify FE network is there to help you do much more quickly.
Great, thank you. And we've got a question here. Do the panel agree that digital should be the third functional skill, so English, maths, digital? And if so, how could this be embedded as a cultural norm, expectation in vocational education? So does anyone want to take that one on?
Maybe I can just jump in. I think it's a great development, and I think it's very important for all staff and learners. But maybe one sort of caveat for me is there that it's maybe not enough to have general digital skills in order to do the work that we're discussing that, looks at implementing new tech or deciding which solution to buy. Because I think there is a lot of professional knowledge that we can't expect every single person in the workforce to have, something more expert that we do need in order to make best use of digital for education and training.
Great. And
I was going to, sorry, can I build? I was going to say, I think it's already there. Sorry, just to be really bold, and I know I'm the industry person here. I think people coming into the workforce right out of education, whatever age, the digital skills in terms of ease of it, making sure they can pick it up, it's intuitive nature, like it's grown so much in the last even 5 years, where you can, industry used to be like having to teach people how to use technology. Nowadays, people come to me and say, well, why is there not a search bar? Like, why do I have to read a guide? So actually, it's their expectations that have changed so drastically. So if anything, for me, it's not the functional skills they need. It's the soft skills and the traits of going, well, how do you manage through technology when you're upset? How do you take a pause? How do you not react? That, for me, is such a gap coming out of schools that we deal with in an industry perspective, that all of our training is you spend all your time doing that versus functional skills, because if anything, they're better at that, and they're really unequipped to deal with the resilience of how do you deal with that when you get feedback via tech, etc. So that would be my perspective on that.
We've got another one here. For Shane and Chantal, did you have a situation where you wish you had a bit of tech to help?
To be fair, we had the tech to help. It wasn't a case of wishing for it. Our college has been quite ahead of the game. Again, Mark Parsons tends to lead quite a bit on this. We get the stuff that we use for our TLA and for delivery. As we're very fortunate to be supported by middle management, my line manager, and senior management. Not everyone has access to devices and so on and so forth. So we've got a bank of spare tablets, laptops, and devices that can be disseminated amongst learners, both on a take-home basis. I think going back to what Chantal said, the access before we get to let all learners, using it, the accessibility to all those learners, I think, is a big issue. Not everyone has access to, let alone a smart device, or even Wi-Fi at home. So I think we need, a rigorous and guaranteed provision of devices and Wi-Fi that can apply to a home setting through a college login, if you like. I don't know how. But I think for learners to access that at home, particularly with a blended learning model, I think is really, really important. And I think what else is important before learners get into the habit of being able to and learning how to learn it is for the tech companies themselves not to get too ahead of themselves, not to get too complicated. It's daunting enough for colleagues and learners alike. So getting, you got Google and Microsoft not trying to outdo each other per se, but trying to get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing before every person, if you like, has got to learn the 1-3 stages below that. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you. So there's the constant change, and then also, I know we spoke before about actually the professional development. So perhaps we have the tech, but are people within the college always given time, or within their schedule, is there the chance for extra professional development? And I don't know, Chantal, you may have a comment on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm listening and I'm trying to adapt. My world is so different, and I just can't not say that, because I think my face will say stuff for me. But I really do operate in such a different environment, and I think the differences between these two environments is probably the need to why we have to bridge the gap and find a way to be relevant to each other and speak our own language. Because it does feel like there's two different languages happening in this call, just as an example of it. But for me, I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish technology could give me a whole lot more information about what the government's going to do, what this virus is going to do, what people are going to feel. So I'm definitely going to say I'd love more tech to give me insight into that. But I think for us is the strategy we have with technology is we have a lot of in-house, highly agile systems. So we run off of a Google network. We use a thing called Integramat that allows us to be very agile. So for me, the key has been that we're building technology platform. We're building technological interventions every week. And the pace of change means you have to do it every week. And I'm very thankful that I have tech platforms that allow us to be that agile. Because if I didn't, I don't know how businesses are surviving with the level of change, where for us, although the workload and the pace is extremely difficult, we're very lucky that our tech platforms allow us to be that agile. So for me, that's been a key success factor, that's not outsourced, it's 100% in-house. So it gives me that adaptability.
That's super interesting. Thank you. I just going to say, I might just jump to Egla, because I'm conscious that you've been sat very patiently, and also it's a good segue, and I'll come back to you, Shane. In that, your world as well as learning and development, and working with corporate clients and understanding the changing nature of learning and development. And I know we spoke before about what's happening both positive and negatively within that industry. And I've got here, regarding freelance rates, companies in survival mode, or where they're trying to be a bit more long-term play, and embedding best practices around user experience versus, just deploying content. So I wondered if I could bring you in at this point and for you to share a little bit around what you're hearing around learning and development and vocational technology, and the good and the bad.
Oh boy, my time to shine. So as you would imagine, there has been a real surge of interest in digital learning because of everything that has happened. And all face-to-face programs, they went online in the span of a few weeks. And on one hand, that's a good thing. On the other hand, because of that rush, quality suffered. Meaning that if you used to have a one-day-long workshop, and now you're doing the same thing, a one-day-long workshop on Zoom, let's be honest, that's just torture. So you need to redesign these things from scratch. And because they have not been designed for that new medium specifically, the digital medium, lots of people, they have been, I think, disillusioned by what digital learning can do. And so on one hand, we have this lots of interest in digital learning, especially in the lifelong learning scene, where people are now accepting that online learning it's not second rate, it's not your last resort. People are just going and trying to improve themselves. But at the same time, we are having these conversations about Zoom fatigue, about lack of human connection, about parents being disillusioned by how tech is deployed by schools, about students asking for significant discounts because now their courses are going to be fully or partly online. So there are two sides. And from this situation, I think two types of practices emerged. So there were some L&D departments who, I have heard of them, and some really good things happening in the industry where they would stop what they would do naturally, their business as usual, and they would really try to understand, try to listen to the employees and see what they needed in that moment. And then they would provide these resources and that support. So to give you a few examples, maybe it's a resource on mental health or in handling customers who are on edge or stressed out. Maybe it's a drop-in session for the same reason. Maybe it's a virtual space for managers to meet and share their experiences on managing virtually. So these are the good practices. But on the other side of the spectrum, we have other learning departments who have continued doing what they've always done. So, for example, these large-scale programs, custom builds of e-learning, which they may be excellent, they may be transformational, but they may be really good, maybe 2-3 months down the line, but not to address the immediate emergency. So the sort of ability to react and to listen to what your people need, what kind of support they need has been crucial. And I think that there are other anecdotes, for example, companies buying huge libraries of content for the sake of it and then saying that, so look at how much time our employees have been spending consuming content, as if that's naturally like an unequivocally positive thing, or buying courses about COVID, because like go onto any news outlet and you're going to find the best up-to-date information you can find. Or I even saw this way overdeveloped hand washing simulation course type thing where so yeah, like if you're asking about good and bad practices, so there's a bit of both, column A and column B.
That's very, I think it's always helpful to remember, what's the goal. And it's interesting that you broke it down into, what's useful now, and then perhaps what can be a longer term investment, a strategic play as well. So, I mean, we've got a little while, we've got some more questions coming, but this session is all about the future of further education, vocational technology and learning, and workplace learning. What would you each like to see, if that is to develop, what would you like to see more of, and who would like to go first? Shane, go for it.
So I'll go back to the point I made earlier about, I think, accessibility to all learners, not just at college, but at home as well. Not just the learners that are financially secure either. You've got learners that can't afford a pen, can't afford food, let alone Wi-Fi devices and so on and so forth. So I'd like to see something done about that. I've visited a few quite special colleges over the last 12, 13 months or so. I've been to see Stephen Hope at Leeds, Scott down at BCAR, ESAM at Westminster. And I would love our and all colleges to adopt that sort of digital innovator department model, if you like, where designated area for these guys to work with colleagues in curriculum areas, spending time with them, almost even creating their first 2 or 3 resources for them, giving that one-to-one sort of upskilling, if you like, to get them on their educational technology journey. I think that consistent support and help will help colleagues take in the plunge, if you like. And I think it's just as important to start with colleagues as almost as important as if you're starting with a student on teaching them the technology. If a tutor or member of staff is using technology in a lesson compared to someone that isn't, that learner is talked about the soft skills gap with Chantal a few moments ago. That's going to bridge the gap slightly than a teacher that's less confident and not using it. Does that make sense? So I think if you take the time to train up these colleagues in using it, that will transcend to the learners, and they'll get used to using it and, you know, feel a bit more comfortable with that technology. All right.
And Maren, how do you close that gap between sort of the industry language and pace and, you know, further education and the development on that side? How do you have any ideas? And obviously we can bounce that around to the other guests as well.
I think Shane is right. I think the professional expertise is key here. Because I think only that can really help build the confidence, because the kinds of questions that Chantal was mentioning, like how do you manage people effectively? What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if someone has a meltdown? What happens, you know, when you have a mental health crisis or when you're battling digital poverty, which applies to staff just as much as it does to students. And there's a lot of, I think, reluctance to talk about that, because I think when you are professional and you're meant to leading a class, you know, it's hard to say, well, I don't have a laptop, my kid's dog, you know, cat, etc., unemployed partner are with me here at the kitchen table and my Wi-Fi is breaking down. That's a hard thing to resolve via technology. I've led a wholly, you know, online-based organization for over 3 years. We've had every crisis in the book. And, you know, there's definitely no playbook that I found so far that has helped me through that. So I think it's, you know, learning technology professionals, whether you call them digital champions or innovators or instructional designers, those are really key. And that's why we want to champion, you know, that recognition for that professional expertise to try and snowball it up further. But I think we do have a lot of expertise in the sector, and I've been inspired partly this week through the showcase week, but also in general, just to see how quickly people have been adapting. I think, you know, for better or for worse, this crisis has given us an opportunity to really motivate people to move on these skill gaps more than ever before. So I think there is a real opportunity.
And on that, Maren, I think one of the big things I would get, if they would, all colleagues doing, and it certainly worked for me over the last couple of years, is tailoring my Twitter account, for example, to more edu Twitter than personal. The edu Twitter content on there has been more valuable CPD than probably anything in the last 10 years. And I think, you know, I think that's a great starting point for a lot of colleagues.
I think this. Sorry, can I jump in? I was gonna say, I think this highlights the scale of the problem for me. Like, so I did a very brief stint out of hospitality. I am a food person through and through. I did a very brief stint in third sector and had my first real exposure to education. And, you know, I think it's ridiculous that in this day and age, we're talking about making sure people have the right resources to do their job. And so for me, as like a selfish employer, if you're coming to the table with that type of problem, we can't even have a meaningful conversation. And I by no means am I discarding the problem. I think it's a real problem, and that's a problem in the education side that needs to be fixed. It's a no-brainer. I could not run a business and be successful if we did not do the basics of giving people the right resources and tools to do their job. That for me is ticket to ride stuff. So until we overcome that hurdle, I can get on the same page. One, I think we're always having a imbalanced conversation. What I'd love to do is to say, you know, our apprenticeship program has all of the right intentions behind it. It's clearly not working from an outputs perspective, and the engagement levels is nowhere near as high as they should be. Because as an industry perspective, I'm still paying for an L&D team. I'm still paying for exactly some of the examples that were used and trying to make sure I don't have an over-engineered hand washing system, because that's our practical solutions we need today. So for me to then take on any level of educational issues with it, there's got to be a collaboration space where we can come in as equals and say, okay, how do we make apprenticeships land? How do we make them meaningful for both the individual and getting the business the outputs they need? Because right now, my opinion is that apprenticeship scheme does not give me that. Therefore, I can't invest in it because I have to solve real life problems. And the real life problem is that user, that learner for me, needs to know how to do their job every day. brilliantly and feel confident and safe to do so. So that 2 rants for you there. Education system needs to sort their beep out, and then we need to have a meaningful conversation about how we do it together, because right now it's just that's just not happening.
I think as well that FE institutions need to have a very supportive management structure. I'm fortunate here at Cheshire College that we have just that. Whatever technology or new thing we want to try, because we're proactive in asking for it and being seen to use it, and social media in about it, I do love a tweet, and promoting that we use it, our management team, whether it's local in our hospitality area or college-wide, is very supportive in getting that. And an example of that, last year, we were fortunate to secure through the Create Education project a 2-month loan scheme on some 3D printers. Some for obviously STEM and down in engineering and motor vehicle and through our Bentley partnership and so on. But we, Mark Parsons, again, this name keeps cropping up, he's very proactive and very persuasive, got us a 3D printer and a form box, which has since turned into sponsorship, to have, in inverted commas, have a play and develop some recipes, some dishes with our learners. It was fun for me to have a play as well. And we made a bespoke mold. We wanted to design our own academy Snickers bar, and we wanted to do that as like a 4-layer self-contained multi-texture dessert. Sorry if I'm making you hungry, but we were actually 3D printing layers for that dessert using chocolate, peanut butter paste, and so on and so forth. So all the elements that were going into that Snickers bar, a couple of those we were 3D printing, and it, you know, yes, I was overseeing it, but it was the learners taking part and getting enthused and engaged. And again, it's just an example of how a very supportive management structure can aid in that. Now, I know it does happen in pockets across the country, but I think it's fair to say not every college has that full support. Are you with me?
Fantastic. I mean, we've got a point here from Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. That, you know, she liked your point about Twitter being an easy tool for staff to learn with, and I suppose you've just mentioned about 3D printing as well. She was asking about any other tools which are easy to engage staff with. And Egla, if I bring you into this one as well as Shane, and then I'm going to come back to the point about community in a minute, but yeah, any other tools that you find useful to actually, I suppose, engage staff into this journey on digital and perhaps get their appetite going for how to learn through it as well?
Yeah, are you going first, Iggy?
My first thought is that it so much depends on the context. The same tools that work for some people in some lines of work, they just completely fall flat for others. I know that, yeah, like you're right, Twitter is a great tool if you have a community and you know how to use it intelligently. For some people, they just register on Twitter and just cannot understand what the big deal is about. So off the top, I cannot think of a tool aside from any kind of online learning community that you find for yourself and you develop with them. That would be first thing that comes to mind. Obviously, not a comprehensive one.
Marin,
I think for one to use, having recently become a Wakelet ambassador myself, is the tool Wakelet. Now, Wakelet is a curation and resource collection sort of tool. I'm using it to replace handouts. I don't print any paper handouts anymore. We make the handouts interactive. We make them come alive as they click on this Wakelet link. You can upload a couple of PDFs for the guys that just don't want to let go to their handouts. But Wakelet, as well as curating your own stuff, it has a search button, a search function. Now you can search for Wakelet resources on any technology that you want to use. And again, there's a chap I follow on Twitter called Phil Whitehead, who quite often makes public and publishes them through Wakelet, all his educational videos and training resources on the educational technology that he uses, from anything from PowerPoint Live to Teams to OneNote. OneNote, by the way, I'll come back to that. That is awesome. Absolutely love OneNote. But yeah, and you know, it doesn't just stop at Microsoft. There's a bit of Google stuff as well. But Wakelet, I think, is a really good search tool to get you started.
Marin.
Yeah, I was just going to share my top 2 recommendations would be particularly if you're looking to upskill staff from the first principles, really head to the blended learning essentials courses that are running on FutureLearn. They are open courses that are free to attend and open to everyone. And they were developed with 4 modules, including one specifically on apprenticeships and focused on the vocational education sector. So I think particularly if you're looking to, you know, make it really easy for staff to engage, there's even a course on how to take the course module in the course. So there's really, you know, from first principles, building confidence. And then I would also really recommend that you have a look at the hashtag or the site Amplify FE that I mentioned earlier, because we've pulled together a list of over 100 places to go to start that journey. Whether you're looking for the best people to follow who know about specific platforms, like Shane was mentioning, or whether you're looking for a network for a specific type of education provider or key stage or subject area. So hopefully this list will make it easier for you to know where to start.
And also, Marion, I can't forget the lady's name that asked the question, but another one who I've neglected to mention, even though I'm MIE expert, I'll have it taken off me for not mentioning it. But the Microsoft Education Center, I believe Google does something similar as well, but the Microsoft Education Center, just type that into Google, funnily enough, and it takes you to a page where there's course after course after course. Now, our IT and network services department are great, but they're very technical. They know, they can tell me all about it from a technical point of view, but I struggle then to how to use that in context. Now, all the Microsoft stuff that I've learned about, I've done through the Microsoft Education Center, because it has teachers doing the online tutorial videos. So it gives you some great pointers of how to use this technology in actual context. And I think that's important as well. It's not just about knowing what it is and what it does, it's how you, as that tutor, use it in the context of your vocational area. And I believe the Microsoft Education Center does that. Plus, you get little badges and certificates and stuff, digital badges, which you can put on your email signature or whatever you want. So it's good.
So we've got 10 minutes left. Oh, sorry, Chantal, go for it.
Sorry, I was just going to add something like just completely different to the rest of the group. So just want to, I think I completely agree with the comment that was made around it. So depends on what you're trying to learn and the context of that. The one thing that I did with my team, you know, we shared all of our apps on our phone, and we were just like, we had some really good tech people in our team. We had some really like dinosaurs like me. And what we decided was that for a week, we were going to really try to embrace it. So it was simple things. So for me, there's a real power in taking it out of context of work. So for example, like making sure your light bulbs are turned on and off via the app on your phone. Sounds daunting, but the minute I figured out how to do it, I then got better with technology. So I think there's just sometimes this focus on, you know, how have I embraced technology as a people director when I run tech and people? Well, I just embraced tech as a human, and that's allowed me to then just get more, you know, like a 20-year-old that's like intuitive and just can touch it. So for me, I'd be saying just everything you do in your normal life that's not technology, challenge yourself for a week to do it via an app, and it will be painful and frustrating, and you'll definitely want to kill me for saying that, but you'll be better at it. And for me, there's something about taking it out of the context of work that's quite powerful.
I love your point there, because in the setting up of this, I was sort of in my mad way in my head saying, hello, old friend, to the feeling of, oh my God, this is going to be, it's the first time we've done a live stream on StreamYard. Is it going to work? Which, you know, how often do people actually say that? And then, you know, of course, once it works, oh yeah, it was brilliant. You know, yeah, it's really easy. It goes out to YouTube, But if, you know, I think it's that feeling of slight discomfort that's the learning point. And yeah, it sort of makes me feel like things are moving forward if I feel like that now and again.
That's the thing, Sophie, and I think we've all felt and feel like that, particularly when it comes to educational technology. it's only easy when you know how to do it, isn't it? And that's the same in anything in life. And we've all been there, and if we can get that message across to colleagues, might make it look easy now, but we have all been there at the very beginning, feeling daunted, feeling nauseous, I've died a death in countless lessons using technology. Turns out the students got me out of that mess by coming to show me how to do it anyway. But yeah, you've got to, everyone's got to start somewhere.
And such a simple idea about just, sharing the apps on your phone and starting that conversation. So we've got the 8 minutes left, if my clock is correct. So the College of the Future report, they talked about people, productivity and place. And the RSA yesterday were talking about this idea of a sort of community surge. So the response to COVID and actually in local contexts, the community responding. So I kind of wanted to know from all of you here today about, what's the balance between physical place, and this could be for, the company that you work for, or it could be for the college. So the balance between physical place and online, how do you negotiate those different communities or different manifestations of communities? And when we're thinking about the future of FE and vocational technology, what's the role of place, both physical and online? Anyone want to jump in?
No. Me too.
Go on, Shane, go for it.
Well, our college has been pretty fantastic and proactive, both from the very first day of lockdown up until our return in August, September. Back in March, we made sure every learner either got access to a laptop, was able to access Teams, little literature PDFs were printed and given to every single learner in the place for how to access Teams and Microsoft Office from home. The college has set up working groups and liaising closely with awarding bodies on mitigation and adaptations. The working group has done risk assessments on the place itself to ensure it's a safe place to return to work, both with visual aids, posters here, there and everywhere, the hand gels, been really thorough. They've added a personal touch as well. Now, that's great for when you're coming back to it. But during lockdown, for example, the college set up like a sharing team, like a community where we could share not just work resources. In fact, the college tried to steer us away from sharing work resources during lockdown. I created a range of what you would cook for tea out of ingredients you had in your cupboard during a lockdown. So I set up a camera and what have you, which was quite challenging with a 3-year-old running around. But we set up videos of what I made for tea that night with stuff I had in the cupboard. We had guys sharing tips for crochet, tips for knitting, this, that, and the other with the whole of the college. So I think that was a really, really nice touch, and it worked really well.
So there's a little provocation. So there are some university or organizations popping up around higher education and universities offerings where, for example, you can do an MBA at Disneyland, or you can do an MBA next to the beach in Hawaii, because you take that online offering and they sort of package it up around a different place. And I just wondered, how much of this is about how you experience learning or the workplace by going into somewhere or by being part of the fabric of the community, and how much of that can be sort of nurtured online as well?
I think I might come in here because, in the UK, we have the Open University, one of the longest established open universities in the world, and they have successfully delivered fully online degrees at all levels for a long time. And there's countless other examples where we know online education can be just as engaging and valuable and exciting as face-to-face delivery. And many of the reports we've seen come out emphasize that there will be more blended provision in the future, regardless of how the pandemic situation develops now. But I feel really strongly there's always going to be a really important place for physical provision within a community, particularly in contexts where you're working closely with local employers, but also with local communities. I think, institutions do a lot more than just, in quotation marks, deliver education. They are part of the places where they are situated, and their workforces are too. So I think there's, so much potential in going blended, in going online, but I don't think that's detracting from the importance of place. I think that will always be really important, because we're all physical beings. We all have to be somewhere.
Absolutely.
I echo that completely, that you cannot remove the need for human connection and the ability to not simulate, to be in it. Like, there's something about being in it. Like you said, that feeling of, oh my God, this is a new platform I'm using differently. Like, you can't simulate that. You can do lots of versions of it and you can tap into it, but there's something magical. I mean, the chef in the corner would agree with me. You don't know what a chef feels like until you got 10 tickets on a Friday night. That's just the way it goes. And I think for me, the blended approach, and we are heavy on the tech side, for the only reason why that's worth my investment of time and energy for me and my team is so that it takes away the boring stuff you had to do in the human time, personal connection time anyway. So for me, it's the things like making sure the compliance, the stuff that you have to learn that's better on a reflective, different learning style can be via technology. And again, different based on the user, I think is really key here. Not one size fits all does not work. But then you cherish that human connection part, and you're doing it for the real stuff, problem solving, adaptability, and giving people real life skills. So yeah, I think we should cherish the connection part. If this has taught us anything, we really, really should cherish it. But I think we have been lazy about it in the past, and now we have to look at it differently. So we have to make sure that if we're spending time with any learner, we're maximizing that time, and we're not using it for stuff that could absolutely be done online.
And that's the thing, Chantal, isn't it? That the online will never ever replace that buzz of having a customer sat in front of you. For my colleague Vicky, who's our academy restaurant manageress, we've had to adapt that because, like I say, the restaurant has been closed since September. So not only are we struggling because of loss of revenue stream, we're also, the learners are missing that excitement, that buzz, that almost nervousness of having a customer or a table of 4 customers, if you like, sat in front of them. Online will never ever replace that. But what Vicky's doing, to be fair to her, and I think it's absolutely brilliant, she's almost doing it scenario based, whereby she's getting one group of learners to dine, and her group are actually waiting on that other half of the group of learners. Now that's still nowhere near as what it should be, is it, to be fair? But I don't see what there's not a lot else we can do with that. But she's really giving it a go and trying to make that as real as possible. Even with no customers, we're making them come in their full uniform. Like I say, they're waiting on each other and giving it a good go that way.
Thank you very much, Shane, and thank you all. I think that nearly brings us to time. So if I was going to wrap up in a sort of slightly positive way, I think it would be that it sounds like this human-centered design that Egla spoke about in the beginning as well. And I know that this comment here around seeing the whole human. So, perhaps this is about we've been able to bring the human element to digital as we go forward. So I'd like to thank all of you for your time today. It's another momentous day with global news and first day of another lockdown in England. And a quick reminder that we've got another episode coming out with lots of response using vocational technology during COVID coming up on the podcast, which is the EdTech podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I think that's about all. Thank you all for listening. If you've watched and listened live, if you're watching or listening back, and thanks again to my guests. It's been great, and hope to see you back for another live stream at some point soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.